Hello and welcome to Sugar, Silk and Stretch, a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Ace Podcast Nation. My name is Ben
And
Doughty.
my name is Michael Silk Olajide. How you doing,
Well,
man?
Silk, yeah, I'm good. All the better for seeing you. As was the stock token line for sad men in standing on their own in a pub in a British pub to the attractive young barmaid. That was the token line. So
Hey, listen. I know you're a music guy, so I want to see. I come out, themed. I have a certain theme today, so I'm going to test you with this theme before we go. If you know
go
this song, because you're a music guy. I know you're
on
really
him.
good. So all right. So hold on 1 second. And the hint is in what I'm wearing. Let's see.
Don't bother asking for explanation. She'll just tell you that she came in the year of the cat.
That's Cat. It's Cat Stevens, right?
It's not Cat Stevens, no.
But I understand this. I know the song "The Year of the Cat." It's like it's a '70s band, right?
Al Stewart, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Not bad. I mean,
So what?
middling.
Yeah.
I
It
just
was a
thought I
little,
would throw something out there too. You know what I mean? Kind of like we got like a cat themed flavor today.
where
I
does
just
the
like drilling you on stuff like that because usually I get interesting answers when we're not on
okay?
air. And
What? How is it a cat theme show? Explain that to me.
well, no, you don't see it.
What is it
The
to do with your
iPads,
iPads?
bro.
Oh, cool. I got it. Yeah, it's like a puma or something, right?
I mean, it's kind of obvious, isn't it?
I
No.
can see it now. Yeah, but what? So what is that your newest
What did you
creation?
think? What did you think it was? Please tell me.
I
You
just
just thought it
saw a
was a
silver
weird
eye
guy.
patch that looked like it had an elaborate design initially,
Oh,
but now you've drawn my attention to it. I can see what it is.
oh, okay. All right. Well, we know you didn't excel as an art major, I guess. So,
Yeah, that's true. Didn't really excel as in anything major, if truth be told. But listen, Silk. Okay, this we've taken this opportunity to make this our preview of the Joshua Ngannou fight, which takes place next Friday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And see, I already know what you're feeling on this one, and you're reasonably confident. But I know a lot of boxing stalwarts who are kind of worried for Anthony Joshua. I know Frank Lotierzo, for instance, said the last kind of guy he needs is a guy, a granite chin, a monstrous puncher who's that strong, regardless of his particular combat discipline, and the guy who's got nothing to lose. But then on Friday night, you said no, he does have something to lose.
before we even get to there, let's don't forget what the statement that you said because we will revisit it. But what is strength in boxing, and how is that even an attribute? That's what I'd like
Well,
to.
see, you won't have this, and that's why you don't think weight's important, and why. In no way in the world, I don't think Michael Spinks didn't help him to gain 25 pounds of muscle before he fought Larry Holmes. But let's
That,
not.
but that's not the question. I'm saying strength and how does it an attribute in the boxing ring?
Well, it's different to power, of course. So I think boxing is still physical as much as it's skills based. It is physical, and I think somebody making his physical presence known in the ring and pushing you around, and like you said, when you become physical and when you hold each other in the early days, right? You look at early 20th century boxing, all they seemed to do was clinch. Half the
Mhm.
time. Maybe the cinematography wasn't as sophisticated, but you feel a guy's strength in there, right? I mean, if somebody said to you, "Who's the strongest guy you ever fought?" What would you come back to them with?
I don't know if I could really qualify that.
Because you've never been in the ring with a guy you thought, "God damn, this guy's strong." You didn't feel that way.
I've been in with heavier guys and tried to move them. You know what I mean? You're on the inside with them and you're trying to turn
How
them
did you feel
and,
about Aaron Barkley, for instance?
well, I mean, look, like I've worked like Aaron Barkley was. We fought at a distance, so his strength didn't. You know what I mean? He was a
It
puncher.
looked like he was muscling you around. So you know the term out muscled. It's a famous
No,
phrase
he
in
didn't.
boxing.
But he didn't outmuscle me. It was the fight that I chose to fight. He didn't
I
make me
didn't
fight.
say out muscled you. What I'm saying is, do you accept that concept or not? Because that's a well known phrase in boxing, right? Out muscled. It's gone out of fashion a bit in this era, but you'll
Yeah,
be familiar with it, of course.
yeah. Oh, I'm absolutely familiar with it. I don't think. No, I mean, if you're fighting a mauler, somebody like Iran is not a mauler. He's Iran.
He's not as skilled as you were, but he'd still beat you.
Here it is. But if you don't realize what your advantages are, or if you don't take advantage of your advantages, then somebody like Aaron Barkley can definitely get over. Now he has the ability, like he's strong in terms of like being able to absorb. He's very like he's thick bones. He's got like strong. I don't know what you want to call it. The way he's built, he can absorb your punches. Like, I don't know, maybe there's some sort of muscle that covers nerves and you have to hit him a certain way to really, you know what I mean, to get to him. But
Yeah.
I don't believe, like, I mean, I sparred with Murky Sosa, for instance, and he's a big guy and he's physically strong on the inside. He'll pick you up, but these are things that aren't allowed during the fight. So it is a matter of skill, and it isn't necessarily a matter of strength. What you can bench press, what you could lift, what you can.
No, don't get me wrong. I think that kind of strength is irrelevant. Which, you know, when you get them big rugby player or doorman types who come to the gym and they fancy go at boxing, they always meet for the roast, right? So because they just can't handle quick, live, athletic boxers.
Exactly.
And they think they probably can. Some of them when they enter into that environment. But you know, see. I hope you understand. I don't disagree with you. The spirit of many of the things you say. I think I agree with you that size is overrated in boxing, and the good big and always beats a good little one is a lazy axiom. I agree, and I agree that that reach can possibly be overrated some of the time as well. And I'm open for all the other things which are outside the box, like saying maybe the jab is slightly overstated in some cases by some coaches. But I do think size and strength is some kind of factor. Certainly size and power is another equation, right? Power is a different thing.
Yes,
but what was I going to say? There was something that you just said that brought to mind something in particular. Fury supposedly said, you can say what you want about Ngannou being a novice and how he embarrassed me because he'd never had a professional boxing match before. He said, but that guy is so unbelievably strong, you wouldn't believe it. Supposedly those words came from Fury's mouth.
Okay, but what does he mean by strong? Like he's able to absorb his punches? Like,
keep coming forward, apparently impervious to maybe shots that you're throwing.
Is that what strength is? Because there's a I understand, yes, there's obviously a mental strength that's extremely pertinent to a boxer. You know what I mean? Like the emotional, the psychological strength is very important. The physical strength is, I think, a lot more, I don't know, rudimentary, not really as relevant in boxing. Like, well, what are we talking about when we say mental strength or physical strength?
Do you know what? I don't know how relevant this is. And you when did you first start boxing? How old were you when you had your first fight?
I was my first fight, I think I was 16, something like that.
Okay, so I was only 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I continued boxing all the way through into adulthood as an amateur. Now, sometimes as a kid, I felt some lads were too strong for me at a certain time, occasionally. I never remember thinking anyone was too strong for me when I was an adult, boxing in my weight division. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that is I don't know what that says or whether it's irrelevant.
I think what you mean is like they're too good or too different. Or
they were no way too good. They were not too good. Absolutely not. I just felt a couple of lads were too strong.
You said they were too strong. That's because they were aggressive and you couldn't keep them off you, but you didn't have the knowledge to keep them off you.
Maybe that's what it was.
You know what I mean? It's all about that knowledge. Like I've sparred with Vito Antuofermo, was what a lot of people would say is a very strong guy. Uh-huh. Mustafa Hamsho, I moved with him as well. People would say he's a very strong guy, but when they say that, do they mean resilient? Because they are that. They're extremely resilient in that way. And
a guy like Steve Collins is strong. He'll push you back. He's not a huge puncher. Tommy Hearns is a harder puncher than Steve Collins, but Steve Collins was phenomenally strong and acknowledged as such by his opponents. Some of it is durability. Some of it is physical strength when fighters collide and when fighters meet and when fighters have to jostle each other, which does happen. I don't care how much you box a distance. That does constantly go on where you're in the ring with somebody, unless you're putting so much distance between him and you, like Hector Camacho versus Jose Luis Ramirez or something. You know what I mean? Then that becomes something that you feel in a fight.
To the boxer when he's fighting somebody who's like a mauler And if they let him in and let them fight his kind of fight, it does feel like this person's like sapping your strength because you're not doing something that's usual to you.
George Foreman. I mean, you know, when
George
you're
Foreman, yeah.
just
Yeah, he's
so.
yeah, it's hard. I mean, look, George was in his first incarnation, he was absolutely stronger. Not stronger, but he was what's the word I'm looking for? In the first half of his career, because then he was in the second half. Like the first half, he was about that youth and the power and all the rest of that kind of stuff. The second time he came back in the second half of his career, allowed him to win the world title like with 2 generations after his prime.
Mhm.
But that was the skill, right? That wasn't the strength. When he came back, his skill allowed him to win the world title.
He had gamesmanship at that point. He knew what worked for him. I think some of it is self-knowledge, Michael. And you trade off what you hinted at this recently with Duran. There's a trade-off somewhere between your supposed physical prime, as measurable by certain performances and statistics or whatever, and your actual prime in terms of knowing yourself so well. Self-knowledge and that old man self-knowledge in the ring is a very important factor because you suddenly understand. Perhaps you understand your limitations better as well as your strengths and your skills. Foreman had a much better knowledge of himself and what he did well in his second career, I think.
Well, but his level of skill was way like night and day. If you look at him, like when he beat Jerry Cooney or he beat any of these guys, like look what he did with like the way he fainted with the right or the left, and then he came with the left uppercut to knock. I mean, he did that with many guys, and it was like incredible what he did.
And he wasn't picking shots like that against Joe Frazier in 1973 at all. He was going what Ali said. He was doing what Ali said of like, watch out, here come the left, here come the right. It was another. I think, and I don't think this stuff gets discussed enough.
That's what I'm saying. He was consumed with power, and he wasn't doing the technical stuff. And he tried to overpower Ali the same way. You didn't see complex combinations from him. You didn't see him hooking off the jab. You didn't see him catching and firing. But in the second half of his career, you absolutely saw that. And in reverse for Ali. Now Ali came out when in the first half of his career, he was like heavily like his skill was on another planet altogether. But the second half of his career, everyone thought he was this whimsical kind of like light. As soon as a bag of hot air, as soon as someone puts the pressure on him, he's going to fold. In the second half of Ali's career, he showed, I guess you want to say strength or resiliency, or he showed a different.
Yeah, he was mercurial in the 60s. He was mercurial in the 60s. In the 70s, he showed you how strong, wise, and tough he was and how adaptable he was. And still some flashes of the old genius and brilliance, which, from the trademark brand,
But he gutted out a lot more than, you know what I mean? And he did.
So let's get back to the Joshua Ngannou scenario, which is less than a week away. So in your opinion, why did Ngannou give Fury so much trouble? Because I've always believed you get a novice from another, a boxing novice from another combat sport, however highly regarded he is in that particular combat discipline. I've always thought a boxer would absolutely own him. We saw it with Mayweather and McGregor. I can't really remember too many other instances, but there's been other cases in history. And then suddenly what unfolds is quite an interesting tussle, which Fury just about escapes from with a deserved but very razor thin verdict is the way I saw it. So why do you think that went down the way it did?
I think we give far too much credit to the skill of Fury than he really has and owns. I mean, I think that was.
So why has Fury achieved what he's achieved?
Well, I think he's achieved what he's achieved through. Listen, Fury does a lot of things that are good. You know what I mean? I think his bluster. I think that helps. It throws a lot of fighters off. I'm not saying. What I am saying is he isn't the most skilled guy, but the guys that he's fighting in the division aren't the most skilled guys either.
No, because we don't live in the greatest era, no matter what.
Exactly, and because the competition is the air is thin, the competition is thin. The guy who's at the top, he's not going to be up to par with the pastime greats as well, or even part-time exceptionals.
You know, don't you? I mean, you know full well Montel Griffin is convinced that nobody beats Fury just because he's 270 odd pounds, and he will not deviate from that. He will not.
No,
He won't listen.
no. Yeah, but you know what they say: a hard head leads to a soft ass, and that's always, you know. I mean, I think that. Listen, there are things there are attributes that Fury has, which are admirable, and you know, his heart for one, and his ability to absorb, and his willingness to fight, and all the rest of that kind of stuff. But if we're talking about skills, I think he's pretty predictable in a lot of ways. Like he'll come out and he'll feint a lot, and he'll get like fighters who have already had. Fighters who are experienced, guys who've had enough fights, and this is interesting with the Ngannou thing here. Guys who've had fights, and it looks like, and so when Fury starts feinting them, they're expecting something to come, so they freeze and they get too tense and they don't know what to do. They're not experienced enough to block, counter, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And Ngannou, he comes out and he does the same thing with Ngannou. He's like this all, you know what I mean? Ngannou's not panicking because he doesn't know that's what you're supposed to do. And so all of a sudden that anticipation that the real boxers have because Fury is feinting them. So they're like, oh, I'm expecting something to come and nothing's coming behind it. And then it comes, okay. But the guys who, when Ngannou's doing that, Fury's doing that to Ngannou's like, I don't even know what that is. I'm just going to punch. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant to the fight.
So how does that go down? How does that translate? Because you seem to think Anthony Joshua is going to do a much better job. I believe that's what you think.
Yeah, he really should. He really should, because I think that he's a different type of fighter. He's than Fury is. He's not about the smoke and mirrors, and he's just about he does a basic foundational job of boxing. Like he'll come in with the strong jab, he'll follow it up with the right at the right time.
You said he's very programmed, almost robotic. I think
exactly. Yes, yeah, exactly. And I don't think this kind of fighter is not something Ngannou is going to be able to do something with, because Ngannou also doesn't have like the greatest punching range. Like he doesn't hook off the jab. Everything's predictable. There's the left, and there's his timing is good. Sure, okay, it must be good, right? And he punches like he's very basic in his in the spectrum of complex combination punching, or even the 2-punch combination.
Saj Ali says, Michael, could it also be the case that Ngannou, being used to expecting kicks and throws, he didn't panic because he knew they were only punches, worst case scenario? And that's what a lot of MMA guys have suggested, that it's because you're not worried about punches per se, or it's not your only concern.
But the thing is, and that's the thing with boxing, and even in MMA, the most knockouts come from the hands. Like they don't come from the feet, and they don't come from choking guys out, stuff like that. So I think it is, as it is a salient point. At the same time, it's kind of like, no.
Yeah. Okay. So the other factors that have been cited is that Fury took him lightly, didn't train, however much he said he trained, and had a hard 15-week camp or whatever he said. With the fact that he had a small community of fat living in it actually had its own its own nationhood.
He always,
huh?
When hasn't he?
But he looked especially out of shape against Ngannou. When you look at those, people call them love handles, right? They weren't really love handles so much as they were separate kind of like provinces that had their own sovereignty, pretty much.
Yeah.
So people say he didn't train.
Though.
Say again?
Sorry?
What did you say first?
I said, even still, as far as I'm concerned, even if he should have been able to batter him around for like 4 rounds. Like the skill, the disparity is that wide that it shouldn't have been an issue. And I think maybe what Tyson Fury did is maybe he psyched himself out. Maybe going into the fight, and this is what happens often with boxing, that people don't see. The fans don't see it, the refs don't see it, your cornermen don't see it, but there's a psychological advantage when all of a sudden you see your opponent and there's this realization that this is something more than I thought it was going to be. And psychologically, there's like maybe there's this he kind of realized, you know what, this guy's for real, and maybe he is going to give me an issue, or he's I don't know. It's just an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement of Ngannou when he should have had no acknowledgement at all. He should have just went in there to do the job. All of a sudden, on the day of, he was like, "Oh, I maybe I should have prepared better." And then he starts thinking. He starts rolling it back, and he's starting to think he's becoming less confident because of that. Like he outpsyched himself in a way. Like if he went in there and like when I looked at the fight, I don't think he threw a lot of punches coming out. So how could he test Ngannou? Like boxing, you have to use your hands. You have to test out the waters with your hands. Does he know how to block? Does he know how to slip? Does he any of that?
Ngannou was blocking. That seemed to be part his chief defensive attribute was he was blocking with long parries. You know, when you extend your hands and you take the punches out before they arrive at you. That seemed to be a lot of what Ngannou was doing from an orthodox and a southpaw stance. He was parrying with long parries. And,
but that's a mature fighter or an experienced fighter like he is, like Fury is. He should be able to counter that. Like, okay, so he's catching my punch out here.
Yeah,
so the jab and come over with the hook. I mean,
thank you.
This isn't.
They call it second phase, I believe. When they talk about second phase counter punch or whatever, the first phase, you let him block those shots. You know, whatever the scouting report, and then you change the range.
That's what feints are all about, and there's all sorts of, you know what I mean. There are all sorts of different ways to get through that kind of defense, and I know. I think that's just another thing that showed his I don't know if I want to say lack of ability or lack of knowledge, or maybe his cornermen didn't tell him that. Somebody dropped the ball. Somebody wasn't taking, not taking him seriously is an important part of it as well. But I think he should have been able to suck that up like a champion. Like, and you want to be considered one of the greats? Come on, no.
Yeah, I actually think it's very legacy damning as things stand, but he still has some cards to play, of course, including the Usyk fight on May the 18th, assuming it doesn't fall out again. But I don't think
he can come back from it. For me, he can't come back with it from that performance.
He can't get out of jail with you. You're just like, well, that you've shown me who you are. By the way, Silk, please forgive me for being the only one on this team with production values, but sometimes you're light and you're lit up great, as you should be, as a man as photogenic as yourself, and then you go dark. And I'm wondering why that is. Can we just get that? Thank you. There's the light Silk. There's the light. There's the dark Silk. There's the light Silk. Can I have that all the time, please? And the ladies and gentlemen at home. No, dark.
It might be
there,
just my energy.
There. That is the one we want. That is your face in all its glory. It's gone dark again.
I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here. I don't understand why it's going light dark.
It's like night and day, really accelerated. Constantly flickering back and forth. You know what? I've registered my concerns. Let's move on in case people get bored hearing me scold you about the presentation side of this wonderful show. So listen, but if Anthony Joshua, I captioned this show is AJ on the verge of career suicide. Now it's a little dramatic and a little clickbait, but I think it's pretty damning if he does lose, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If he loses, even if it's a very difficult fight, I mean, yes, Ngannou is. You have to give him his props for whatever he's capable of doing in this fight, and even the fact that he's willing to step in and do this. How many people would willingly step in against a former world heavyweight champion and still like legitimately campaigning for the heavyweight title and the heavyweight champion himself, and back to back with no prior professional boxing experience? That's insane. It's insane. It really is.
I just want to pick up on this comment. Ellen Bromson has asked, what is Sydney Street saying? I've only just noticed a comment. Sydney Street is saying, AJ's boxing persona of the nice guy was always fake. He was this doesn't make grammatical sense, but he says he was he always the roadman boxer. If he had gone with that persona, his mental state would be healthier if he loses to Ngannou. I don't fully understand what he's saying myself, Ellen, but you asked what a roadman boxer is. It means a street guy. In America, you say a street guy. When we say roadman here, we mean he's somebody who runs with a gang. You know, so it might be someone who sells drugs or is involved in little bits of skullduggery or gang affiliated, or he lives on the street by the codes of the street. That's a roadman.
But I think what he's trying to establish is that he's like a street fighter more than anything.
Because AJ came from that kind of background where he went to prison briefly. He was on remand actually for possession of weed.
Anthony Joshua went to prison.
Well, if you let me explain it, yeah, he was on remand. He didn't actually get sentenced, but he was on remand for a little while in one of those well-known nicks in London, Greater London area for selling weed, marijuana, whatever. Mm-hmm. So he said that when he broke down, when he had that funny episode against Usyk where he threw the belts out of the ring or one of the belts out of the ring, and he said, I only ever started boxing because I was on remand and I thought if I get sentenced, I want to know how to fight. And he said that was a turning point in his life. It was quite a garbled, emotional, confused message, but he basically kind of said, this isn't me, and this kind of clothes horse and role model and everything else they've made me. I'm just Anthony Joshua who nearly did a bit of bird for shot in weed, and I found myself, athletically gifted in a certain area, and I ran with it. But I don't want all this pressure, and I don't care for it. And what Sydney has alluded to is how much he's changed his persona. From the good time days and the days of innocence are over, when he was always very gregarious and articulate and deferential and, like a politician almost, Anthony Joshua. Now he wears this more terse street face as if to say, I don't need you, man. I don't care for you, journalists and maybe even fans sometimes, I mean, there was a story a couple of years ago where he accosted some university students who were catcalling out the window to him and giving him some stick about one of his recent fights, whatever it was. It may have even been Andy Ruiz, the first one. And he's supposed to have gone into this dorm and kind of enlivened them up a bit and told them to watch their mouths, which I think is pretty cool. But people were saying that Anthony has been increasingly more truculent in the last couple of years, and his mentality has changed.
He can do that now because of the success he has. I mean, he has a financial pillow that's pretty significant. And so you don't have to watch your words as much anymore. You don't really care about what people say. And then also it's been just because of he's just spent so much time at that level, being admired, all the rest of that kind of stuff. It's almost like human beings after a certain amount of success, we're set to implode, and we don't care as much anymore what people think. You just get tired of the repetition.
Well, Mike Tyson had very much that story. Tyson's PR was absolutely on point in the early days, and he was such a charmer. And then he became this kind of freak show, distrusting, bad guy, in people's minds. Simon has asked us, fellas, what's your take on the sport's credibility if Ngannou wins? Will it be bad or will it not make that much difference? How will you feel, Silk?
Well, I've always felt the heavyweight division was extremely weak. I think it's the weakest it's probably ever been in its history, with the exception of, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I don't think there's really somebody with the vanguard. There isn't that one fighter that is a pure boxer that's overseeing the whole thing. It's like we just don't have, maybe it's because we don't have that American Olympic heavyweight that I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh my God. But I mean, that was really the vanguard that was the guy who protected the gate. You know what I mean? And
also, whether it was an Olympic champion or not, you had that wonderful tradition for several Olympiads running from Patterson to Cassius Clay to Joe Frazier and George Foreman,
yes,
and so on. That just seemed to be the most iconic progression that we've had in the sport. Yeah. But even before those days and after those days, Michael, you can't get away from the fact that the heavyweight champion of the world, it was the real Mr. America spot back in the day. And he had that kind of importance and stature and majesty of a statesman, whereas these days they just don't have that. Part of it is because of the title proliferation and the lack of faith you can have in the sanctioning bodies and who actually calls somebody and hails somebody a champion. and some of it is because of the way they demystify themselves on social media so much.
Yeah,
You know,
I always think, Ben, I always think it's about ability, what it comes down to. And you know what? None of these guys they're just not impressive. It's not like like you look at some of the guys that were heavyweights, look at Ali, you look at Foreman. I mean, these guys, you look at Holyfield, you look at Tyson, they're physically
Larry Holmes.
Larry Holmes, Ken Norton, whatever, you know what I mean? If you don't say Ken Norton, but you look at them and you're physically impressed. You're like, these guys really went through something to get to what they got. You know what I mean? So visually, this means something to a person who's the non-boxer. When they look at something and they see it physically so impressive, that really makes everything stand out. They goes, okay, I get it. Look at him. He's scary to me. But when you see, you know what I mean? You look at Tyson Fury and you see like all this around the middle and Anthony Ruiz. You look at him, yeah, and you're just not physically impressed. So you're kind of like, I don't get it. How do you how do you get to be the world champion without showing the dedication of a champion? Because that's what your body is telling. That's what but your image is talking to people, and it's saying, you know what, I'm doing this half-assed. If you sacrifice,
it's like doing a podcast where you keep going dark all the time. Like you say, it's just not. You've got to communicate with the people. Stay light. Do you know what? I always remember thinking when Fury, you remember when he gate crashed that? Well, he didn't gate crash it. It was his press conference. But you remember when he arrived late in that yellow kind of funny mobile dressed as Batman for the Klitschko fight? Remember that?
No.
You never saw it. He turned up as Batman, in full Batman regalia. But he was in a yellow. It was like a Batmobile, but it was yellow. But it was some really strange low to the, like a Pink Panther car, but it was yellow. Okay, and it came out with this. The top goes like, and out comes Batman. You know, shouting the odds, saying what and he's got the Joker with him too. He had a Joker with him too, and he started wrestling around with him, and he was shouting. He said, because he said to Klitschko, "That's what you are, a Joker, fucking Joker." And I remember thinking two things. One, it was hilarious and kind of cool. And secondly, I could not imagine Sonny Liston or Joe Louis or Rocky Marciano doing that. And you start to ask yourself, what has become of these people that used to be icons and the true icons of the century of moving pictures? And now they're just different, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. But I want to jump back for a second because you said something about, when did Anthony Joshua start boxing?
He was about 18 and 19, so 18, I think.
Okay, so that
when he was on remand in Reading jail, I think somebody told him it was Reading.
Okay.
Reading
well, that
jail,
explains a lot. That explains a lot, and because he doesn't have the pedigree, the deep amateur pedigree, the experience. That's why he's incomplete, and he needs somebody that can fill in those holes. That makes him that allows him to become. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's why there's so many guys that. The heavyweight division is ruled by a heavyweight that isn't. He's always kind of like, he can go at any time. You never know. It's not this solid reign that a guy with incredible ability. Yes, he has advantages. He's naturally athletic. He's powerful.
Well, you're talking about Joshua, but he's not got any reign of any kind because he was deposed as a champion years ago. I mean, we have. If you want to talk about reigns and people who represent that and carry that baton, it's Usyk and Fury, and we have not resolved that argument yet. We need to be clear on that.
And Usyk, who I like, and I think I like him so much because of his strong amateur pedigree, and he has ability. I can look at him and I see what he does, and he is the consummate boxer. Like I could look at him and say, yeah, if this guy is reigning the heavyweight division and thumping everybody in it, it makes sense to me. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, and I think what I've heard from a lot of Brits who would like Usyk to win because they say that they admire him as a boxer, they admire his skills, and they admire his conduct, they admire the way he carries himself. You know, some people, Fury's obviously going to be that Marmite kind of figure, that polarizing figure. Some people love Fury because of all the bombast and the Gypsy King kind of shtick. And some of them cannot stand him and think the sooner that guy gets chinned or retires forever, the better, because they feel he's done damage to boxing. You know, they think his legacy's been a negative one in terms of
a little self-serving. You know what I mean? He does things to enrich himself, which, I mean, you can't blame boxers because for decades and centuries, they're always getting the short end of the stick. So today it is about self-enrichment. boxing is, but at the same time, you have to give people what they want to see. You can't just, you can't just say like some people like, I'm not gonna fight because I'm not getting paid the amount of money that I need to be
We'll
paid.
see. I make you right, because what I think actually, fighters have got too much. The top fighters have got too much autonomy these days. They've got too much control over their careers. I think
Yes.
there needs to be a healthy degree of enlightened dictatorship.
Yeah.
Not dictatorship. You know what I'm saying? There needs to be
Don't
a
use
degree
that
of
word in America.
huh?
Don't use that word in America.
No, it was never popular since the days of Castro, was it? It's you know what I mean though. There needs to be more kind of enlightened, integrity-based intervention with the sanctioning bodies, because other sports, they have decrees. You can't just do what the fuck you want and take on the competition that suits you. It's different though, isn't it? Because people say, they talk about the Premiership football in Britain, and they say Arsenal can't just avoid Man United or Chelsea, but the trouble is, Man United or Chelsea or any of them, they're not going to get hit. They're not going to get punched. They're not going to get punched into a coma potentially and never wake up, are they? You know what I mean? So that would be the argument from boxers and from boxing people and boxing fans, I suppose, is that the men risk their life in the ring, and women today. There's enough of them. So consequently, it's a different thing, and you couldn't fault anybody for micromanaging their career and making sure they had the upside. You know what I mean? That would be their argument, but I don't think we agree with it.
Yeah, in a way, I do believe in it, but then there are some things that just have to remain in order for the sport to be legitimate, in order for it to be accepted, in order for a person to qualify themselves and call himself a champion. You know what I mean? There's just certain levels of expectancy. And once you start getting away from that and being self-serving, like absolutely self-serving, and not considering the sport itself. Like,
when people say,
it's great that you're able to eat. I love that. You're able to eat, you're able to buy your richness and all the rest of that kind of stuff. But you also want to preserve something for the people, for the fighters coming up behind you.
And that's what annoys me. So when you get people, when people criticize whether it's a Canelo or a Tyson Fury, like when people said, Fury, he was criticized for taking the Ngannou fight over a supposedly more meaningful fight. And people said, they cited Ali. Look what, because some people said it's the same as Ali fighting the Japanese wrestler Inoki. And then rightfully, people said no, because Ali defended his undisputed world heavyweight championship 4 times that year. And that was a little sideshow. That is forgivable. That wasn't the only answer he had that
4
year.
times defending the world title, 15 rounds.
The world title as well, not a fragment of it, Michael. Not a fragment of it, my friend.
15 rounds.
So listen, when people said that, you know what they come back with then? The apologists. They say, yeah, I look at Ali, couldn't fucking talk or tie his shoelaces by the time he was 40, and blah, 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 blah. So you know what I say? Let's just give them all our money so they don't have to fight at all, because it's a bit nasty, isn't it? I mean, I hate saying you take punches when I watch you fight Tommy Hearns or whatever. Wouldn't it be nicer if we just gave all you guys all our money, the ones who talk the loudest maybe, that could get the most money, and no one would ever have to punch each other at all, because it is rather violent, isn't it? And very unseemly. Do you not think?
You know what? That's the nature of the sport, and that's the nature of life.
Yeah.
You know what? If you don't have the ability, if you want to fight and you don't have the ability to fight, the world's a lot worse.
Yeah.
It's a lot worse for you if you sorry, go ahead.
So we can't just argue forever on the side of safety or, well, Floyd Mayweather, look at the position he's in. I mean, it is great that he's unassailably wealthy, has generational wealth, and he's unmarked and he appears to be undiminished. But if you're going to use that blueprint and that risk-reward thing for everything, then you may as well be something else and not a boxer, right?
Well, the thing is, with Floyd, and it's interesting, Floyd was one of the very few, if not maybe the only one, that was absolutely able to take 100% advantage of every other fighter's investment in the sport to his benefit. Like, people love boxing because of what they've seen. I think if you were trying to get popular, if Floyd was the first fighter, and not Ali and not Sugar Ray and not Hearns and Hagler and Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta and Rocky Marciano, if Floyd was the first fighter, I don't think boxing would be for him would be that wealth generating.
Because
because
You know,
it's people want to be entertained, so they think it's going to be for every single fight that I've seen of Floyd's that goes big, like Pacquiao and he outboxes these guys, and it's beautiful. It's the science. He's smart. He's intelligent. He's gifted with the way he throws punches. He doesn't exchange with anybody. More power to you. That's absolutely great. But it's not like he doesn't engage the opponent in the same way. He's very safety first, and that is not what's going to put people's butts in the seat. But
he already had him in the seats. I see your point. He already had them in the seat
exactly
because of the legacy that had been built before him.
Exactly, the legacy. Everyone, this is what they expect of a fight, and they say, okay, well, that guy's going to make him fight the way he's supposed to fight, and they can't because he is that good, obviously. And the other guys didn't do their homework on Floyd's style. kind of thing.
So, all right, let's go. Let's make our prediction on Joshua Ngannou. Then I want to talk about the chief support, which some people are looking forward to even more, which is Zhang versus Joseph Parker. But so you give me your prediction, and I'll give you mine on Joshua Ngannou.
Yeah, I would say what it should be, and if it isn't, I'm going to laugh my butt off. I think it should be Joshua within 5.
I'm going for Joshua. I'm not specifying KO points. I wouldn't be surprised to see him do an Andy Ruiz 2 type job and stay outside and box his way to I believe it's a 12-round decision. But either way, I've got Anthony Joshua, so we're in this together on this occasion with this one, and we shall see in about 5 or 6 days' time.
I think that Joshua's power is a whole lot more real and consistent than Tyson Fury's. Absolutely. And when he gets hit by Joshua, the shock of being hit by a real professional boxer is going to, I think,
dawn on him in a way it didn't last time.
Yeah, exactly. Even the jab, like when he gets hit with that jab, it's not going to be like Tyson Fury's jab is very superficial. It's very like surface. You know what I mean? When Anthony Joshua throws punches, it's a different beast. It's like he's punching through you. And I think, I think that's going to be the difference in this. No matter what Anthony Joshua throws, it's going to have some heat behind it, and that's going to be the difference. All of a sudden, that's that alarm, that's that wake up call. Like, okay, what am I doing here? But he's being paid handsomely for it, and that's cool.
Okay. Chief support is Joseph Parker, who's seen as rejuvenated now after a couple of wins, and then the big deal over Deontay Wilder on the Day of Reckoning card, versus the danger man that a lot of people are not too anxious to fight, Zhang, who pretty much ruined the career of Joe Joyce until further notice. I don't know where you stand on that one.
I'm not really so sure about either fighter, but I kind of got to go with Zhang. I think the guy's big. He's got exceptional. I don't know about exceptional, but extremely good. He chooses punches really well.
He's very good offensively. Yeah, he's good shot selection.
Yeah,
I'm with you, Silk. We're not disagreeing on this particular episode because I think people are reading too much in, or they're taking too much from the Parker Wilder thing. Wilder was absolutely woefully abysmal that night, and do you know what I mean? And fair play to Joseph Parker. It's still a dangerous scenario when you're with Deontay Wilder.
Parker would have always done that. Parker would have always done that.
To Wilder. Yeah. So some people are getting really high on that, and sometimes it's literally the last thing in their memory. After he stopped Joyce the first time and the second time, people were saying Zhang might be the best heavyweight in the world, and Fury was ducking him, and he was awesome. And who's going to fight this guy now? Whereas then they watched Parker do that against Deontay Wilder could literally have been sedated during the whole fight, and so I'm not. I still remember Parker 2 years ago getting dominated and stopped by Joe Joyce. I know triangle theories don't work. I know styles make fights and all the rest of it. But I agree with you. I'm going with the impressive guy who twice destroyed Joe Joyce over the other guy who is not getting better, whatever anybody might want you to believe. Parker has had a certain zenith and probably had a peak, and he's still useful now. He'd have always beaten Wilder, the Wilder that turned up like that. So I'm going with the more obviously impressive, dangerous fighter of the two. like you.
Yes. Okay. So I'm still going to be in the lead by the time this thing goes down.
No, you need to pick against me for me to catch up. Although it was interesting, wasn't it? With Julian McGowan gave us our percentages. You know, your screen froze. It would have been funny because we said your percentage as the leader was 75% so far in predictions.
Yes.
I was 62.5, and then Gary, typically enough, came up with 69. And I just said, "Oh, Gary's 69," and you froze. We could have got a laugh out of that. We're getting this week instead.
Yeah, we certainly could have.
Do you know what I mean?
I want to be 69 now.
I knew you'd say that. I knew your ego. I knew your sexual ego would almost take a dip just for those figures, just for those magical digits. I'll tell you something. Truth be told, I much prefer a good 34.5 on my side.
Okay, you're doing math, and that's a little bit out of my league.
Yeah, you're bright enough to figure that one out, though. I'll let that one hang in the air.
I get where you're going.
So there's one other, all right. So there's one other story that broke today. Okay, do you remember Dylan White failing a drug test in August when he was a week before his scheduled rematch with Anthony Joshua that never was?
Yeah.
Okay, and then he went very quiet, didn't he? You probably almost forgot he existed in the interim.
Yeah.
He kept his mouth shut. He let the lawyers do their thing, and he let process take its process. And it was announced today that the Texas Boxing Commission, with whom he is licensed, by the way, not the British Boxing Board of Control, they said that it was an accidental ingestion of a contaminated supplement. They said that they didn't name the supplement, they didn't name the adverse finding, the contaminant, but they said that the supplement did not disclose the contaminant, and that there's no way, or that they don't believe that White ingested it deliberately. So he's cleared and free to box, and so he's been making statements today saying he's going to thinking about suing the supplement manufacturers, and people don't believe you, but it's been annoying, it's been hurtful, but now he's back.
I don't even know where to start on that. So this is a U.S. company that did these supplements.
The Texas Boxing Commission is his licensing agency. They're the ones who license him. He doesn't have a license with the British Board of Control.
Oh, he did. Dillian White does not.
He boxes on a Texas license, like Fury boxes on a Nevada license. Tyson.
Oh, I didn't.
Nigel Benn boxes on a Nevada license. Sorry,
if he didn't pass, he'd have to pass the BBC's codes and rules, wouldn't he?
Apparently not, because it was VADA that did the test.
I mean, if he's fighting in England, he would have to, but
the testing agency was VADA, which is not the one that the British Boxing Board of Control strictly recognises. I mean, they listen to VADA, but they're not their official partner in drug testing. That is UCAD, okay? Mm-hmm. This is what is such a mess, Silk. It's so complicated. But so he's licensed by the Texas Commission, so they're the ones who looked into it, into his licensing status, and they have decreed that he's clear. But when Conor Benn was cleared by the WBC and by the UK anti-doping panel and was licensed in America, the board have still stood firm and refused to license him in this country as yet, because they're not happy that he has explained those findings to their satisfaction. Quite where that leaves Dylan White, I don't know, in terms of continuing his career, certainly in the UK. I do know that he's 35 years old and probably needs to get a move on.
Yeah. He's probably pretty. So he's upset. He doesn't feel vindicated. I guess he does feel somewhat.
He does. But he said it's a shame because nobody gives you the benefit of the doubt. Everybody's so quick to say, yeah. But you know what?
I just don't. I don't get it. I don't understand how he could show up as a positive, and then I don't know how. When did it happen? A year ago, and now all of a sudden
August.
Okay, so August, and then they're saying now that it was a false negative or whatever it was.
But check this out. He was banned in 2012 for 2 years, and he served that ban because he tested positive for a banned stimulant in 2012 when he was a young rookie pro. He didn't have the cachet he had now. He didn't have the backup. He didn't have the resources he has today. So he just got a ban like they all do when they're not that important, because he wasn't a big deal then. So he served a 2-year ban. He came back in 2014 and started making more of a name for himself. And then in 2019, he tested positive for Dianabol, a well-known bodybuilding ped, That's quite retro, I believe. 70s kind of. It was
Mhm.
popular, but and then eventually he was cleared by, I think it was UKAD. Yeah, it was UKAD that cleared him,
You can't.
saying that
And
there were
he,
very
he
low
was,
levels.
but
Very
he was
low levels.
cleared, he was cleared because why was he cleared? Because he just served enough time, or he didn't do it.
No, like I said, no. Listen, he got banned. This is the
Yeah.
third time he's failed a drug test. This is
Yeah,
the third
that's
time.
crazy.
No, so check it out. Let's go with the chronology, the timeline of Dylan White's drug testing. So in 2012 he got banned. He was found guilty and banned. Okay, yeah. Then in 2019 he was flagged for Diana Ball after the Oscar Rivas fight, and then he wasn't banned or suspended, but he let it play out. And after several months, they concluded that it was very low levels and it was probably an accident. And then he's just been popped again back to August, and they said that was a contaminant. It was the company's fault. Let's sue them.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, so it always basically it always comes down to
Very unlucky, isn't he?
Yeah, he's extremely. I can't even get over it. I can't get by it. Like when that happens to you 3 times in a row. I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't.
Well, it's only happened 3 times in 12 years, but even so,
It shouldn't happen at all, right? I mean,
no,
ultimately,
it shouldn't.
that's
But you know what was comical? You know, he was replaced by Robert Helenius, remember? When he was
Yes.
supposed to fight Joshua. And then Helenius stepped in, had the fight, got sparked in a round, and then revealed an adverse finding too. So he tested positive after the fight as well. So they got rid of one guy who tested positive, brought in another guy, just the same thing.
wow.
I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you?
No, you couldn't. You know, I think it's extremely important that they keep boxing as clean as possible, especially this is what you need, because the sport itself, it's about hurting people. It's not about throwing a ball faster or shooting a ball deeper or running it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not about out racing somebody. It's about beating a man. And
we need to be careful here, though, because PEDs make you stronger or more powerful, perhaps.
Yeah.
And they do various things which you actually don't recognize when they're naturally present.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see where I'm going with this?
No, go further.
You talk about physical advantages like what is strength or what is size, but PEDs, they're going to make you stronger, certainly. And you say that's relatively irrelevant.
Well, no, when you say PEDs make you stronger, you're able to punch harder for a longer period of time. You're able to your body will perform better. I don't know if it's going to allow you to endure more. I don't know about that, because endurance, I mean, you get hit, and how do you protect the nerves? I don't know if
I think they make you, they enable you to train harder. That's one big thing, I think, to train harder.
But training harder doesn't necessarily equate to being able to absorb more punishment.
True, absolutely not.
It'll allow you to endure more cardiovascular wise or muscle endurance wise, but impact, I don't think that PEDs have that kind of, you know what I mean? That they have that kind of impact on the human body. I don't think it can stop you from getting a concussion.
I don't think it could. No, and it's not going to get you out of the way of the punch either.
Exactly, and it's not going to stop your. It's not going to stop your eye from swelling closed or not being cut, broken nose, none of that.
You know what's interesting though, because Amir Khan looked a bit suspect around the whiskers or around the temple or wherever. When I mean, obviously he got sparked by Brady's Prescott, but he also looked dodgy against Willie Limond, who wasn't acknowledged as a huge puncher, and so on. You know, he had problems with various guys where he looked like he was a bit fragile. Then when he was working with Alex Ariza, who's obviously got a big kind of PEDs cloud over him, or rumours in the business certainly, and he looked absolutely phenomenal physically against Marcus Maidana when he was taking shots. His legs just looked so strong. He had a great chin that night. It was a bit strange. I've got to be honest with you. When the height of the Freddie Roach stable, when the suspicion on the Freddie Roach stable was at his absolute height in that Ariza era, Khan looked phenomenal underneath him.
Okay, but then you have to consider also the fact that what these things can do, what performance enhancing drugs can do, besides giving you you know what I mean? The ability to train harder. It also psychologically, the confidence it affects your confidence as well, because you are stronger, and the odds are. I mean, that confidence that he's and the endurance that he's been able to build up because of those performance enhancing drugs, those things make him feel impervious. So his mannerisms are different than a fighter who's just coming in like with his casual, usual training routine. And I think that can affect our perception watching him. That affects our perception. Oh, he doesn't usually look this confident, or or guess what? If he starts sucking wind, right? He's usually sucking wind by, let's say the fourth or fifth round. He's not doing that now, so he's still up on his confidence. He's like, oh my God, these drugs really do work, or whatever it is.
Sean says there are PEDs that assist with endurance. That is the one subject matter I have knowledge of, because that's the thing, Silk. One thing we
endurance, I agree.
There are people who know vastly more about PEDs and sports medicine
no,
than you and I.
But endurance and being hit are different things. Endurance, you know what I mean? Like your muscular endurance. Like how long can you throw punches? How many punches can you throw without becoming tired? Right?
Yeah.
And once you get tired, you're more apt to quit. Your resilience is gone. Like you will quit. You will consciously quit. Because you are fatigued and you just feel like, you know what I mean? That you just don't have the ability anymore to continue. So that's what endurance is. But it's not getting beat about the head and everything, and it enhances that.
But regardless, I suppose we can agree that the boxing does seem to have a pretty major drug problem in this era. And more than that, the administration, testing process and disciplinary process is hopelessly convoluted. I think maybe we could agree on that. Yeah.
I think it absolutely is. People are going to get it. Listen, boxing. The thing is with boxing, right? There are just so many different guys that are in the position that are. You got WBC, WBA, different. You got the city commissions, the country commissions, athletic commissions,
and the governing bodies, the regulatory bodies,
in bodies, and there's just so many different ways you can go, and that there needs to be some sort of consolidation and even rules all the way around, because boxing is, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, is it getting hurt? Really? It doesn't seem to be getting hurt. Like the accusations and all the rest, the realizations are there, but it certainly doesn't seem like it's getting hurt. But to the purists, the guys like us who and the people that watch our show, we want to see that. That's what we want to see. We want to see real fighting. We want to see guys that do the work and don't. You know what I mean? Like, how else can we? Like, you can't rest easy and enjoy the sport when it's dirty. You can't say, well,
we want to see something inherently honorable and beautiful at its highest. We don't want it to be cynical, bogus, disingenuous, and everything else. Because why would you want life to be like that? Well, what the hell? Then you really are a cynic, and you've got no soul.
Yeah, and you're putting ahead things that are less. I don't know. You're putting things to the forefront that are more negative and less. You can't be proud of people like that. You know what I mean? Like if they're coming back and they're testing positive for something, how can you say my fighter, this guy that I admire, that I love, that, you know what I mean? He's had hardship. Like, you would never say that about Duran. Like, you'd never say that about all these Robinson,
Ali or Robinson. Yeah,
Ali Robinson. It's like, yo, these guys are clean, and Larry.
But you would. But with Canelo and Roy Jones or Evander Holyfield, people do have shadows, and people. I mean, Holyfield never got busted, by the way, but you know what I mean. People do. People have their suspicions, and some people got popped for the world to see. So there is I think you call it an asterisk. There's an asterisk next to that legacy, sometimes. But did you hear about Amanda Serrano last night? He's frozen again. Let's not do another show like this. Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here. Do you hear me? You froze.
Yeah, you just froze for a second. Did you hear about Amanda Serrano last night?
That's interesting. I did hear. Fill me in on that. I don't know if I heard everything, but I heard
She was
something.
supposed to be defending she's basically the undisputed. I don't know if it's featherweight or lightweight.
She
Forgive me
hurt
for that.
herself, right?
She's the undisputed champion at a particular weight, and but she gave up the WBC title a few months ago because they wouldn't let her box 12 3-minute rounds. She was going to defend the rest of those titles in Puerto Rico, our own land, last night on the same bill as that Jake Paul clown and whoever he fought. And unfortunately, she pulled out. She failed the doctor because she had an exposed cornea. They reckon she might have injured her eye by hair dye. 36 hours before the fight, as it were, hair dye might have leaked into her eye. That is the only explanation I've seen. And she obviously presumably she turned up at the venue hoping to get through the doctor anyway, still wanting to fight. She failed the doctor, and when the other girl came into the ring as if she was ready to fight, and Serrano came in wearing a hooded robe and shades, saying, "I'm so sorry, everybody, but it's not happening tonight."
Yeah, that kind of raised a red flag. I mean, I thought that maybe they, and I don't know, maybe that's just me, but maybe they did that and waited till the last second because they didn't want to kill the gate.
But well, there you go, because she is very popular, I imagine, in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, exactly. And so if they announced it beforehand, no one's coming out in Puerto Rico to see Jake Paul at that rate. You know what I mean?
I would fucking hope not, Michael. And do you know what? I'm very wary of mentioning his name too many times or giving him any shout out at all on our watch. But what I will say is that there seems to be very little interest in JP's fight last night, even the build up all week. I was vaguely aware of it, but nobody seemed to be talking about it, which I thought was great.
Yeah, after a while, people start to see through the smoke, and I think that's, I think that's admirable of us boxing people. We're just not going to give it that time anymore. Don't give it
exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. Gary wanted to talk about that stuff a few months ago, and if Gary had been on tonight, I was waiting for him to say, "Hey, what about Jake Paul?" And then I'd be like, "Fuck that, we're not talking about that." Then you'd be just trying to be diplomatic in the middle somewhere. I'd be like, "No, don't want to hear about it."
But the thing is, so with Serrano, I mean, I don't want to play like conspiratorialist or whatever they call it, but it does seem like, you know what I mean? You don't want to kill a live gate. The money's going to rule. And so wait till the last second, because I mean, that doctor's checkup, that happened like days before, doesn't it?
Well, they said 36 hours before they were aware of an issue. Do you know what I mean? The only other scenario I can think of where a fight was cancelled that late, do you remember Mike Rossman and Victor Galindez, the rematch for which Rossman was waiting in the ring, and in the dressing room, Galindez just said he wasn't coming. He didn't like the officials they had in Vegas, and he said he wasn't fighting, and he just didn't come. One guy's waiting for him in the ring, and he didn't come.
You know what's really interesting about the Galindez? That was Galindez Rossman. Yeah. What's really interesting to me about the Galindez Rossman is that I am going to try to get Marvin Johnson on this show.
Well, go ahead. You've told me that. Let's put up.
That would be absolutely cool. But I don't know his state, and I'm sorry that I'm jumping bases here, but hey, listen, who did not love Marvin Johnson? You just couldn't not like this guy.
When you say you don't know his state, he can't be much worse than you, and you get by every week. I'm joking, of course.
Yeah, you don't have to qualify with that. I know you're joking, obviously.
Yeah. But you wouldn't say if you had a guy who was blatantly damaged, you wouldn't say it, would you? You really wouldn't.
Yeah, no, you definitely would not. But this man had his character. He led with his character every single fight. He was just he was insane.
I would love to get someone like Marvin Johnson, and I think that is the core of what we do. I want us to get to the press conferences more and to the big fights and to get us more content, because content earns you money, and we all need a buck like everybody else, as Sugar Ray Robinson said. But for me, the core of what we do, and I don't truly care how many people are interested. When we get like a Mike Ayala or a Danny Romero or a Marvin Johnson, that is the core of what we do. I think that nobody else is doing. When we get guys like that from what we remember as a golden era, and that's my favorite thing that we do. When we get someone, we're like, wow, because we're the fans, at that moment, and it may not do a lot of business in Marvin Johnson episode, but I don't care because I really want the guy like Marvin Johnson on the show,
Yeah. Like talking to John Conte was really cool that you brought him through, because he was somebody that lived in my imagination. His fights with Saad Muhammad and Amuda and all sorts of different fighters, just the history of him. But Marvin Johnson is something really exceptional.
Do you know he boxed Alan Minter in London in the amateurs?
Yeah, I know he was a middleweight, right? I didn't know he fought Alan Minter, but how did that go?
Minter won on a dinner show, England versus USA at the, I think it was at the London Hilton.
Well, the thing about Alan Minter, which is really, exceptional about him, he had the ability to release his hands really quick. Like he didn't hesitate. It's not even. I'm not even talking about his hand speed, but just what happens with boxers is like there's the opportunity to punch, and sometimes you overthink it, and it causes you to hesitate. And when you hesitate, every time you hesitate in boxing, the opportunity is gone.
Yeah.
Alan Minter, he didn't hesitate. His release was extremely quick. Like Tommy Hearns does that kind of release. And, there's no thought first. It's just like the opportunity's there, bam. It's like this, I don't know, the kinetics of the brain.
Do you know what was weird? I was thinking the other day, without wanting to go on, suggesting we go on forever with our stream of consciousness, but people often say nobody ever outboxed Tommy Hearns, right? Nobody ever outboxed Tommy. If you beat him, you had to beat him another way, right?
Yeah, but I went Barkley outboxed him.
The second time?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they fought on the inside a lot, didn't they? Which I'm not saying that's not outboxing, but
yeah,
they fought on the inside a lot of that fight.
Yeah, a lot of it. I don't remember all that well, but I just remember being surprised. Like he actually countered and dropped Tommy Hearns with the left hook. I was like, okay.
Yeah, and you know what? I really like that second fight as well. I mean, the knockout in the first fight is fun because Iran lands that double right hand, which is pretty spectacular. But I really like the second fight. It's one of those underrated fights to watch and appreciate and learn from. Yeah. Because of the things you said, and to be fair, Iran does have one hell of a resume, really, considering he's not really spoken about that often. When his career really doesn't. I mean, if it's got you on it for a start, that can't be bad. But when you look at,
well, he's got some spectacular wins, but he has some losses that
it's the low points. Yeah,
hesitate. You know what I mean?
We talk about consistency, but in any case, people said that almost nobody ever outboxed Tommy Hearns. Then let's say. And yet, I remember Tim Witherspoon also shaking his head woefully, saying he had no defense because Tim is very big on defense, and Tim was a smart guy like that. And he said Tommy had no defense. But it's interesting, isn't it, how someone can be so a sublime boxer who outboxes everybody, but in the opinion of another defensive general, has no defense. It's a bit of a like an anomaly, isn't it?
Well, and that's because like there are different types of defenses, and Tommy. I remember Howard Cosell saying, what was this saying? Yeah, Howard Cosell had a saying for Tommy Hearns, like his defense, well, his defense is his offense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he causes you to hesitate. And again, like I said, whenever you hesitate, that if you can cause a man to hesitate, that's one of the best defenses you could have. Yeah. And the thing is, the people that beat their Hearns were the people that did not hesitate no matter what. So they were the more, thicker skulled, stronger, resilient, I would say, individuals that like Hagler and Barkley, guys that are and built. That can
Ray Leonard went into the first fight with a certain plan, which he realized wasn't going to work after about 5 rounds. Ray thought, this is all very lovely, but I'm not going to get anywhere near him doing this, and the best I can do is get shut out and survive. Yeah, and then obviously he was like, I'm gonna have to hit this guy in the chin. And
and that's the thing with Tommy. He makes you fight the guy's exceptional. He really is crazy, and he hits so hard and he hits so fast, and his release is so quick. He causes you not to get as active as you usually would, or what you're capable of. He makes you hesitate. Like you have to respect his power, but the guys who beat him were the guys who did not respect his power. But I will also say the guys that lost to him were the guys that didn't believe his power as well. So,
I want you to just read that comment from Sean B. I think this is Sean Graham is on Facebook, but I want you to read that comment because it's a nice comment.
Thank you, Sean. This level of knowledge, listening to this should mean you guys get an A level in boxing. If you listen to it to 6 weeks of it, I'm sorry, my eyes are really bad. Well,
he's just saying, need a wee so badly we don't want to miss any. He's basically saying anybody who watches us for 6 weeks should get an A level in boxing if they're really paying attention. Someone else said something as well. Maybe it was someone else said something nice that I would like to draw attention to again.
Well, thanks, Sean.
This podcast is genuinely super interesting and needs to be listened to so much more widely. So we're starting to get there, Silk. It's a shame. You know what? It is more technical and more learned when Gary's here. It's more charismatic, and we've got three of us all vying to make ourselves heard. And I think we've got the most charisma and the most. My favourite version is when we're all on song is the three of us, but it probably is a bit more professorial when it's just me and you because we get into this more. I think we get more into the technical side of things. So I guess we've got more time to speak. I don't know.
I think obviously having more time to speak as well, and Gary has elaborate sentences that unending, like no punctuation, so you don't get him. No, Gary's absolutely great. So I think, I think we are at our best when there's the three of us going at it. But we have to fight for our time. But it's a good time, you know what I mean? And I really enjoy doing this and discussing boxing. I think it's something that all of us, like all three of us, love. We really love the sport, and we really, love people. The people that tune in on our show tend to love the sport too, and that's.
We haven't had too much idiot infiltration yet. The more popular we get, you will have to deal with that. But the core of people who are tuning into this twice a week are pretty clever themselves. They're pretty clued up on the whole thing, which is great. But
nobody really goes too far off.
I don't know if we're going to do a Silk. I don't know if we're going to do a show next Friday because the Joshua and Ngannou will be happening as we. So I'm not sure how we'll play that because we'll be watching it, won't we? We'll be tuning into it. So Unfortunately, we really can't. Can we do like a live, like when the fight is on itself? Are we allowed? We can do a watch along. We've never done that. We can do that, Silk. We can do it. People do it and they have success with them. It's a thing where if you've got a YouTube channel and you have a fan base, you do a watch along where basically we're not allowed to broadcast the fight in any sense, but we can all be watching it. No one will watch it, and we can. Do you want to try our first watch along on Friday?
Yeah, I guess you could do that. That'd be kind of fun. I mean,
so everybody knows what we're talking about. We're all watching it but no one can see it in the actual screen. They're just us talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we can comment along as we're seeing it in real time. Sounds cool.
Somebody said I got your channel from when you appeared on the Undefeated Boxing Podcast. This is a great weekly show. Thanks. Thanks, Jab Grab. I appeared on the Undefeated Boxing Podcast with Travis J, who's a friend of mine, a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to know the different avenues people come from because so we're going to try and watch it.
That's a frustrating style to fight. Jab, grab.
It's funny how these people get these creative YouTube handles. I mean, was he a fan of Vladimir Klitschko or maybe? Or...
Oh man, that's funny. That's good.
I'm going to look into the timing for the ring walks next week, right, Silk? And then we'll look into the possibility of doing a watch along because that will be a lot of fun. I'll make sure you're hooked up so you've got a stream or whatever, or however you'll be watching it. We'll make sure that's facilitated.
Make sure you give me the Michael Jackson effect like I had today.
What, that was the
like you kept saying how it didn't matter if I was black or white. It was. Yeah,
you kept it's still been flickering all the time. Now I think I don't know what's going on. What it looks like is there's a television on, and so when it does that, when the television.
How big do you think that TV is now?
That's the effect you're getting. If you could possibly fix that at some point in the next millennium, that would be great.
Well, what if people? I mean, some people may like it. It's It's kind of like an aura. It's more like an aura, isn't it? Like there's this.
Yeah, I want us to be a bit more professional, so we look. But maybe the charm of it,
You know
of the
when, you
whole
know,
thing, is
Ben.
that
You
we're
know
not.
when we're gonna be. You know when we're gonna be exceptionally professional
When
when we're getting paid for it.
I
Like
knew you'd say that. Well, listen,
that's exactly what professional means. That's all it means.
but you
Hey,
need to understand that we need to build it, not just me sharing it. You guys share it because I've been very transparent with you about the monetization. We've earned a little bit of money right now, and we've yet to divide it because it's not worth splitting yet. That's where we're at. We don't mind disclosing that, but you could be making some decent money from this channel, but you've got to push it too.
well, yeah. I mean, it's just been, I have so many different
Projects.
things
I get
going
how busy you are.
on.
Listen, the main thing I'm glad about, regardless of that, we will get there. We're already doing well. Really grateful to you guys tuning into us. And we've done this for over a year now, Silk. Already, I'm looking at back episodes we did with Verge Hill was over a year ago. So
Wow.
I think we've stuck to this pretty consistently, and I'm glad we have, because you need to give something about a good 6 months or a year before you get any momentum. And sometimes projects fizzle out. They seem like a good idea at the time, and they fall by the wayside. This hasn't. This has grown. We've gained a stretch to the Sugar and Silk, and we've got a cool fan base. So we will get there. And then, so you're saying when you're earning good money, you're going to fix that flickering light thing, yeah? Deal?
Well, then I guess I can get into a studio because like this is just a basic light on me, and I don't understand why it would be going black and white. I don't know what you're seeing that makes it so hard.
It's just you just fading in and out. If this was a professional studio, someone would say someone light up a larger day and leave him like that. That's the one. That is the look. That's what we need. But in a minute, you're going to be dark again. I know.
Okay, but I'm looking at you right now, and I see your right cheek is lit, and I see your left side is unlit.
That's true.
It's
My
like
lighting, my lighting is not perfect, but what it is consistent, Silk. It doesn't change. I'm not saying it's the best lighting in the
You don't
world.
mind to be consistently bad or consistently good, but not flicking back and forth.
This is definitely the only podcast where you're going to get this kind of discussion, guys. I feel that we've descended into the level of frippery at this point. So we're going to look into this watch along. Quite excited about the idea of making that happen next week. So we're going to keep you posted. Keep spreading the word. Be lucky. Keep punching. Thank you all for tuning in tonight.
Ciao.